There's something unsettling about bad neighbors, because unlike strangers, neighbors live close, too close. They learn your schedule, they hear your arguments, they notice when you leave, and if something is wrong with them, there's almost nowhere to hide. Tonight's stories aren't about haunted houses, they aren't about monsters in the woods, and they aren't about paranormal creatures lurking in the dark. These stories are about ordinary people, people who smiled during the day, waved from their porch, brought groceries inside, and then did things so disturbing their neighbors would never sleep normally again. So before we begin, turn off the lights. And remember, sometimes the scariest thing living beside you looks completely normal. When Kayla moved into the apartment complex, she thought she had finally gotten lucky. The place was small, but clean, affordable, and most importantly, quiet. After years of dealing with loud roommates and chaotic living situations, silence felt like luxury. The complex sat on the edge of a suburban neighborhood outside Columbus. 3 floors, faded beige walls, old carpeting in the hallways, nothing special, but safe. At least, that's what it seemed like. Kayla worked night shifts at a hospital, which meant she usually came home around 3 a.m. Most residents were asleep by then. The hallway stayed empty, still, silent. And for the first 2 weeks, nothing strange happened. Then she met the man in apartment 14C. The first interaction was harmless. She was unlocking her door when she heard someone behind her say, "Late night again?" Kayla jumped. A tall man stood at the opposite end of the hallway, maybe mid-40s, thin, balding, wearing gray sweatpants and slippers. He smiled awkwardly. "Sorry," he said. "Didn't mean to scare you." She laughed nervously. "No, you're fine." "I'm Nathan," he said. "14C." He pointed toward the apartment across from hers. She introduced herself. The interaction lasted maybe 30 seconds. Completely normal. But afterward, something about him bothered her. Not enough to seem rational, just a feeling. The way his eyes stayed locked on her slightly too long. The way he smiled without blinking. Still, she ignored it. Until 3 nights later. Kayla returned from work exhausted. As she stepped onto her floor, she noticed Nathan standing alone in the hallway. Not moving, just standing there, in complete darkness. The hallway lights operated on motion sensors, and because he wasn't moving, the lights had shut off. For a moment, she thought he was a mannequin. Then the lights flickered on. Nathan smiled. "Long shift?" Kayla forced a laugh. "Yeah, you look tired." Something about the sentence made her uncomfortable. Not what he said, how he said it, like he'd been waiting there, watching. She unlocked her apartment quickly. Before entering, she glanced back. Nathan was still standing there, watching her, not speaking, not moving, just staring. That night, Kayla double-locked her door for the first time. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. At first it was subtle. Nathan somehow always seemed to know when she got home, no matter the hour. 2 a.m., 4 a.m., sometimes even later. And every time, he appeared, either opening his door, walking down the hallway, or standing near the stairwell pretending to check his phone. Eventually, Kayla started waiting in her car for a few minutes before going upstairs. Sometimes she'd sit there watching the building, and almost every night, she'd see movement behind Nathan's blinds, like he was already watching the parking lot, waiting for her. One morning she mentioned it jokingly to another tenant, an older woman named Denise. The woman's expression changed immediately. "You should avoid him," Denise said quietly. Kayla laughed. "What, Nathan?" Denise nodded. "He's strange." That was all she'd say. Kayla asked if he'd done something, but Denise just shook her head. "You'll understand eventually." That sentence stayed with her. A few nights later, Kayla woke up around noon to the sound of knocking. 3 slow knocks. She checked the peephole. Nathan stood outside holding a plastic container. She didn't answer. After nearly a minute, he spoke through the door. "I made too much chili." Silence. Then, "I know you're home." Kayla froze. She hadn't made a sound. Her car wasn't visible from the hallway. Yet somehow, he knew. She waited until footsteps finally disappeared, then checked outside. The chili container sat beside her door. On top of it was a sticky note. It read, "You should sleep more." That was the moment genuine fear began, because it meant he'd been observing her long enough to notice her sleeping patterns. From then on, small things started happening. Her trash bags would disappear. Items outside her apartment got moved. One morning she found her doormat missing. The next day it reappeared, perfectly centered in front of her door. And every single time she encountered Nathan, he smiled like nothing was wrong. Then came the maintenance incident. Kayla returned home to find a note taped to her door. Management entered for emergency plumbing repair, except nothing had been repaired. Everything looked untouched. That night she called the leasing office. The manager sounded confused. "There wasn't any maintenance scheduled today." Kayla's stomach dropped. She checked the note again. No official logo, no signature, just printed text. Someone had slipped it under her door to make her think someone had entered, or worse, to hide the fact that someone actually had. She searched the apartment carefully. Nothing appeared stolen until she noticed one thing. Her bedroom window was unlocked. Kayla always locked it. Always. That night she barely slept. Every tiny sound made her heart race. Around 2:30 a.m., she heard footsteps outside her apartment. Slow, dragging, back and forth. Then silence. Then a soft scratching noise, directly outside her door. Kayla crept toward the peephole and immediately stepped backward. Nathan was crouched outside, his face inches from the door, smiling, completely motionless. She nearly screamed. Then suddenly, he whispered, "I know you're awake." Kayla locked herself in the bathroom and called the police. But by the time officers arrived, Nathan was gone. Police knocked on his apartment. No answer. Eventually, management unlocked the unit. Empty. No furniture. No food. Nothing except a folding chair facing the window overlooking the parking lot. And taped across one wall were dozens of photographs. All of Kayla, leaving for work, carrying groceries, checking her mail, sleeping through her bedroom window. Some were taken at night, some from impossible angles, and one photo made the officers physically uncomfortable because it showed Kayla asleep in bed, taken from inside her apartment. Nathan vanished before police could find him. Management later revealed he'd used fake identification during the lease process. No one knew his real name. No one knew where he came from, and no one ever found him. Kayla moved out 2 days later, but according to her, the worst part happened months afterward. She had relocated nearly 3 states away. New apartment, new job, new city. For a while, life finally felt normal again. Until one night she returned home from work and found something outside her door. A plastic container filled with chili, and attached to it was a sticky note. "You still look tired." Marcus had lived on the same street for nearly 11 years. Small neighborhood, quiet, predictable. The kind of place where everyone recognized each other's cars. Kids rode bikes outside. People waved while mowing lawns. Nothing exciting ever happened there, which is exactly why the new neighbor stood out immediately. She moved in during November. Cold rain, gray skies, no moving company, no family, just a single black SUV arriving after midnight. Marcus noticed because he was taking out trash when it happened. A woman stepped from the driver's seat wearing all black. Dark coat, dark gloves, dark sunglasses. At midnight. Even stranger. She didn't unload furniture. Only boxes. Dozens of identical cardboard boxes. She carried every single one inside herself. Fast, without stopping. Marcus assumed she was just private. Some people were. Still, weeks passed, and nobody ever saw visitors. No friends, no deliveries, no lights except one upstairs room. Every night around 1 a.m., that single room illuminated and remained lit until sunrise. Eventually, neighbors began speculating. Some thought she worked remotely. Others assumed she was recovering from trauma, but the strange behavior kept building. For one thing, nobody ever saw her during the daytime. Ever. Marcus started paying attention after realizing this. He worked from home. His desk faced the front window. Days would pass without any movement from the house. No curtains opening, no doors unlocking, nothing. Then around midnight, the upstairs light would switch on, and sometimes he'd see her silhouette standing perfectly still behind the curtain, watching the neighborhood. One night, Marcus went outside to walk his dog. As he passed her property, he heard something strange, a humming noise, soft, almost melodic, coming from beneath the house. He stopped. The humming stopped too. Then came a loud thud, like something heavy hitting the floor. His dog immediately began growling. Not barking, growling, deep and aggressive. Marcus hurried home. The next morning he mentioned it to another neighbor, an older man named Carl. Carl went silent for a moment, then admitted he'd heard noises too. Scraping sounds, banging, and what sounded like crying, but only at night. Over the following weeks, more people started noticing disturbing things. Pets avoided the property. Children claimed the woman stared at them from her upstairs window. And several neighbors reported smelling something foul drifting through the street after midnight. Rotten, sweet, like spoiled meat. Then came the first disappearance. A teenager named Evan vanished while jogging. Police searched the area for days. No evidence, no witnesses. Nothing. The neighborhood became tense afterward. Parents stopped letting kids stay outside late. People installed cameras, motion lights, extra locks. But even then, nobody suspected the woman directly. Not yet. E5, because despite how unsettling she seemed, there was no proof. Until Marcus accidentally saw inside her garage. It happened during a storm. Power flickered across the neighborhood. Marcus looked outside after hearing metal slam. The woman's garage door had partially opened, just enough to reveal a narrow gap. And through it, Marcus saw what looked like industrial freezers, at least 4 of them, large white, commercial grade, inside a residential garage. Then he noticed something else, a bicycle blue, bent front wheel. Marcus recognized it instantly. It belonged to Evan, the missing teenager. His stomach dropped. He immediately called police. Officers arrived within minutes, but by the time they approached the property, garage was closed. The woman answered the door calmly. According to officers, she seemed annoyed more than nervous. She allowed them inside. Everything appeared normal. No bicycle, no freezers. Nothing suspicious. Marcus felt humiliated. Polis clearly believed he'd imagined it, but he knew what he saw. 3 nights later, Marcus woke around 2 a.m. to movement outside. He glanced through his blinds and nearly fell backward. The woman stood across the street, directly facing his house. Not moving. Rain poured around her, but she just stood there, watching. Marcus grabbed his phone. By the time he looked back, she was gone. The next morning, he found muddy footprints leading up his driveway, stopping directly beneath his bedroom window. That same night, his dog disappeared. Marcus searched frantically. No broken fence, no open gate, nothing. Then around midnight, he heard humming outside, the same humming, coming from across the street. Marcus snapped. He grabbed a flashlight and walked directly to the woman's house. Every instinct told him not to, but anger overpowered fear. He pounded on the front door, no response. He knocked harder, still nothing. Then he heard it. A dog whining, weak, muffled. Coming from inside, Marcus circled the house, Most windows were covered, but one basement window had a narrow opening, and through it, he saw enough to haunt him forever. The basement walls were lined with cages, some empty, some covered with blankets. And in the far corner, his dog sat trembling inside one of them. Marcus called police immediately. This time, officers forced entry. What they found inside became local news for weeks. The woman had been abducting animals from surrounding neighborhoods for years. Cats, dogs, even raccoons. Police found dozens of remains stored in hidden freezers beneath the house. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. Because, during the investigation, officers discovered something else hidden behind a false wall in the basement. Photographs, hundreds of them. Every single house in the neighborhood. Every family, every child organized carefully, labeled, documented, including detailed notes about routines, when people left for work, when children walked home, when houses became empty. And mixed among those photos, police found multiple pictures of Evan, the missing teenager, but Evan himself was never found. The woman refused to speak after her arrest. No explanation, no motive, nothing. During interviews, she reportedly smiled most of the time. 5. Especially whenever investigators mentioned the neighborhood, Marcus moved away less than a year later. But according to him, there's one thing he still can't explain. The night before the woman was transferred to prison, he woke up around 1 a.m. and saw the upstairs light inside her abandoned house turn on, just for a moment. Long enough for him to see a silhouette standing behind the curtain, watching his home. The Turners seemed perfect. That's what made everything worse. When Liam and his wife moved into the neighborhood, Turners were the first people to welcome them. Friendly, polite, normal. They brought over cookies, helped unload furniture, even offered recommendations for nearby restaurants. The family looked straight out of a commercial, smiling parents, 2 quiet children, perfect lawn, perfect house, perfect lives. At least on the surface, the first strange thing Liam noticed was the silence, not from the parents, from the kids. The Turner children never laughed, never played, never spoke above whispers. Whenever Liam waved at them outside, they'd freeze. Then slowly look toward their father before responding, like they needed permission. Liam mentioned it to his wife. She shrugged. Strict parents, maybe. That explanation made sense, until the screaming started. It happened late at night, always after midnight. Muffled screams coming from inside the Turner house. Sometimes crying, sometimes crashing sounds, then silence, complete silence. The first few times, Liam ignored it. Couples fought. Families argued. It wasn't his business. But one night, screaming sounded different. Terrified, desperate, and unmistakably childlike. Liam nearly called police. Before he could, noise stopped abruptly. The next morning, he saw Mr. Turner watering his lawn, smiling, relaxed, like nothing had happened. "Sleep okay?" Turner asked casually. Liam studied him carefully. No bruises, no signs of conflict. Liam lied. Turner smiled. "Good." Then added, "Neighborhood can get noisy at night sometimes." The way he said it felt intentional, like a warning. Weeks passed, and the tension kept growing. Liam noticed the Turner children were rarely outside. They never attended birthday parties, never rode bikes, never interacted with other kids, and occasionally, he'd spot bruises, small ones, on wrists, on arms. Once he saw the younger daughter flinch violently when her father placed a hand on her shoulder. That was when Liam contacted Child Services anonymously. An investigator visited the house 2 days later. Everything appeared fine. The children claimed they were happy. The home was spotless. No evidence of abuse. Case closed. Afterward, Mr. Turner stopped waving, stopped smiling, and began watching Liam constantly. Every time Liam stepped outside, Turner seemed nearby, mowing, checking mail, cleaning his garage. Always watching. Then things became personal. One evening, Liam returned home to find his back gate open, nothing stolen. But the family dog hid beneath the table, trembling. The next day, his wife found muddy footprints inside their basement. Someone had entered. Police found no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, nothing. But Liam knew. Somehow, he knew it was Turner. The problem was proving it. Then came the storm. A violent thunderstorm knocked out power across the neighborhood. Streetlights died. Rain hammered the houses. And around 11 p.m., Liam heard knocking at his front door. He opened it expecting a neighbor. Instead, Turner Boy stood there alone, soaked. Terrified, the kid couldn't have been older than 10. He looked over his shoulder repeatedly before whispering, "Please don't tell him I came here." Liam brought him inside immediately. The boy shook uncontrollably, and after several minutes, he finally spoke. "He locks us downstairs." Liam felt cold. "What?" "When he gets angry." The boy's voice cracked. "He says bad families disappear." Then the child said something that made Liam's blood run cold. There used to be another boy. Before Liam could ask more, headlights swept across the window. Mr. Turner's car. The boy panicked instantly. "No, no, no, no." Heavy footsteps approached the porch, then loud pounding. "Open the door." Liam told his wife to call police. Turner kept pounding. Harder. "Open the door." The doorknob rattled violently. And then suddenly, silence. Liam peeked through the window. Turner stood motionless on the porch, rain pouring down his face, smiling. Then he slowly backed away into the darkness. Police arrived minutes later. Turner claimed his son had run away during the storm. He acted calm, concerned, reasonable. But the child refused to leave. Liam's house refused. Eventually, officers escorted everyone back next door while they investigated. Hours later, one officer returned looking pale. He quietly asked Liam if he'd ever noticed construction around the Turner property. Liam remembered a detached shed behind the house, recently renovated. The officer nodded slowly, then revealed what they found underneath it. A hidden concrete room, no windows, no furniture. Only locks, chains bolted into the walls, and children's clothing, dozens of them. Some extremely old. Investigators later uncovered evidence suggesting Turner had abused multiple foster children over nearly 2 decades. Many had disappeared after being relocated through unstable foster systems. Records were incomplete. Some children were never traced. Neighbors had always assumed the family simply moved often. But according to investigators, that wasn't true. The Turners stayed. The children changed. Mr. Turner was arrested that night. His wife claimed she knew nothing. Police never fully believed her. But the most disturbing moment came days later. Liam was helping investigators catalog items removed from the hidden room. One detective opened a dusty storage container. Inside were hundreds of VHS tapes, each labeled with names, dates, and lengths of time. The detective reportedly stopped watching after only 30 seconds of the first tape. He walked outside and vomited in the driveway. To this day, most evidence from the case has never been released publicly. The Turner house sat empty for years afterward, and boarded. Yard overgrown. But people still reported strange things. Lights turning on inside, movement behind curtains, children's voices at night. Most likely trespassers. At least, that's what PC claimed. But Liam experienced something different. Nearly 2 years after the arrest, he woke around 3 a.m. to a sound outside his bedroom window. Soft tapping, tap, tap, tap. Liam pulled the curtain aside, expecting branches. Instead, he found a handwritten note pressed against the glass. 3 words written in shaky crayon. "Calming back." Police searched the abandoned Turner house immediately. They found no one inside. But in the hidden concrete room beneath the shed, officers discovered fresh footprints, small ones, leading into the darkness, and stopping suddenly, as if whoever made them never came back out. Sometimes horror doesn't come from abandoned hospitals, or dark forests, or haunted buildings. Sometimes it lives right next door, behind clean curtains, behind polite smiles, behind ordinary houses hiding terrible secrets. And the worst part is, you may never know who your neighbors truly are. So tonight before you sleep, take one last look outside your window and ask yourself, how well do you really know the people living nearby? If you enjoyed tonight's stories, subscribe to Mr. Dread for more terrifying tales uploaded every week. And remember, some neighbors wave during the day, so nobody notices what they do at night.